In the Impact segment tonight, the growing outcry against the Confederate flag. Many on the left are overjoyed about it being removed from stores, websites, and state capitals across the country. But some extremists are already moving on to a brand new target.
I don't know what the hell the fight is about over the Confederate flag. We need to put the American flag down because we've cut as much hell under that as the Confederate flag. Who are we fighting today? It's the people that carry the American flag. What flag do the police have? What flag flies over the non-justice department? What flag flies over the White House?
While Farrakhan is a virulent hater, many others on the left are saying America and its symbols are the next target in their campaign. Joining us now with reaction from Washington, radio talk show host Richard Fowler and Katie Pavlich, a Fox News contributor. So guys, we all know that the Confederate flag is a divisive symbol and probably does not have any place in a government facility. But we know the Confederate flag did not kill those people in the church in Charleston. It was a diversion. The president came out and first tried to blame guns, and then that flopped, so then they pivoted to the race card. But the problem is, I think now it's getting out of hand. You have Farrakhan out there, and you have now people saying they want the Jefferson Memorial abolished. I mean, how are you going to get rid of that thing? Are we going to go ISIS style, Richard, now throughout the land and start just destroying all these Southern Confederate heritage symbols?
Well, I don't think that's what folks are advocating for on the left, at least the folks that I'm talking to. I see no problem with the Jefferson flag. Jefferson Memorial is one of our founding fathers. But I think the larger question is what can we do as a nation to make sure that we do the best we can to make sure that we sort of end racism or work towards ending racism? And taking down the Confederate flag is part of that. I think if you were to talk to Jews all across the world, if you were to be in Berlin and they were to have the swastika in the Berlin Capitol, people would have a problem with that, and they would call it anti-Semitic, just like having the Confederate flag fly over a state capitol is what I would call racist.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if that's a valid comparison. But Katie,
it is a total valid. It's a total valid comparison. How is it not?
Well, because we don't have a swastika flying over, and I don't think it's anything like that. Now, Katie, let me ask you this: they're having. Let's look at some of the symbols that now are the target. Okay, first symbol we have now: Gone with the Wind, the film. Now, that's now apparently on the chopping block. Do you think that that movie should be abolished?
Look, this is the thing that is very important to recognize here. The left is wanting to sanitize not only the history of the country, but also the cultural history of the country. And if you start banning Gone with the Wind, you're then getting rid of and censoring a time when America looked at racism and slavery through the eyes of Hollywood in that way. And I think that it's important for everyone to learn moving forward history, not just taught through the history books in our liberal classrooms, but also through the culture that existed at the time that film was made and published. But also, Jesse, we're seeing this now bleed into other areas, right? I live in Virginia. My question is, look, Robert E. Lee's house is in Arlington Cemetery. Do we need to take that down? And further, the left is now somehow accusing the right and anyone who is opposed to changing what they find racially insensitive, they're accusing them of racism. But my question is, when are they going to condemn Robert Byrd, who was a member of the KKK and also a member of the Democratic Party, who just a few years ago was glorified by Bill Clinton at his funeral, and Bill Clinton essentially, justified his reason for being in the KKK.
That's right.
So if we're going to talk about racism, let's talk about the Democratic Party.
A symbol that's been associated with the Democratic Party historically. Now, Richard, Gone with the Wind, real quick. Are you offended by Gone with the Wind? Do we need to get rid of it?
No, I think Gone with the Wind has its place in history. It should be in history books and taught in classrooms to show how folks in the South in the 1930s and 1940s saw the peculiar institution of slavery and racism. And I think it's important that all of our students understand how our nation has overcome and how much overcoming we have still left to do. Now, where I disagree with Katie is I don't think this is a left or a right issue. This is an American issue. If I would condemn anybody who was part of the KKK, I would condemn anybody who's a racist, whether in the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, Party, the Communist Party. I will condemn racism every single opportunity I can because that's the only way that we're going to overcome it.
Right.
Will you condemn Robert Byrd and Bill Clinton?
I will condemn
now?
Robert Byrd for being a racist because he was indeed the KKK. Bill Clinton is not a racist.
Well, no, Bill Clinton, when he
not
was
the
Arkansas
KKK.
governor, actually memorialized the state flag there that had a symbol star, which was honoring the Confederacy.
And then
let's just go down one by one.
Taken down.
Let's just go one by one here. Uncle Ben's rice, now a target.
Well, the name
Richard,
has been changed.
Is rice racist because it's white?
No.
Why is this racist?
Well, I think you're simplifying a much larger issue here.
Okay.
What Uncle Ben stood for was the ideal of slavery. It was based off slavery, just like Aunt Jemima's, pancake syrup.
Would you get rid of the syrup also?
But what we're seeing happen in the marketplace is that the marketplace is rejecting these things. Capitalism is rejecting these things. That's why Amazon and Walmart has stopped selling the Confederate flag in their stores, because the marketplace is saying we aren't racist.
Okay,
and we don't want these racist symbols.
Katie, the Aunt Jemima syrup and Uncle Ben's, does Walmart need to get rid of that now too?
On a very serious note here, when you look at what happened in Charleston with the 9 worshipers who were gunned down by a true white supremacist racist, that is racism. And then when we want to get upset about maple syrup and rice, that just completely takes things out of context and really does a disservice to what happened in Charleston. And so I think that we need to keep things in perspective here and not take away from what happened because we're upset about syrup and rice.
That's a really good point. Last thing, I have this in my house because I was a big Dukes of Hazzard fan. Okay, I was a big into Bo and Luke. The general, what is this? This is the Robert E. Lee, ride that Bo and Luke rode around and went wahoo and jumped over the hills and things. Now, I have this toy in my basement, okay? Mm-hmm. It's an old toy. I like it. It's funny. Not because it has a flag on it, but because I used to play with it when I was a little kid, and I love that show. Does that make me a racist? Do I need to get rid of this from my house?
Jesse, I think you're oversimplifying the situation here.
I just don't want to be called a racist, It's like the last thing I want to be called,
calling you a racist. Feel free to continue playing with that toy. I think what the marketplace is saying is that these forms of racism, as part of our consumer nature, need to be taken out the system or taken out the marketplace.
All right. Well, listen, Confederate flag, obviously a very vile and offensive symbol, but I think we're getting a little carried away with some of these others. Richard, Katie, thank you very much.